We mentioned the Capitol Hill testimony. This is a little piece of Admiral Mike Mullen on Capitol Hill today, trying to define what it is that this July 2011 deadline means.
Obviously, the July 2011 date is a day we start transitioning, transferring responsibility and transitioning. It's not a date that we're leaving. And the president also said that will be based on conditions on the ground.
We're joined now by Jeff Zeleny, a White House reporter for the New York Times. And you heard Admiral Mullen there, and you saw it in the speech last night. Does July 2011 actually mean anything if this is all based on events on the ground?
Well, I think it means a lot, at least symbolically. I mean, we're going to hear more about July 2011, than any other time, probably more than the president's reelection. That will be sort of a first benchmark to how President Obama is doing. Substantively on the ground, who knows if that date specifically will mean anything. I believe Secretary Gates said the review to find out if that will be the final date, will be in December 2010. But that will be sort of the mark on all of our calendars, politically and otherwise, how this is going. So sure, it's important.
But was it included just as a sort of political fig leaf for the president, a tip of the hat to knowing that the base of his party is not at all into this? You had senior administration officials background briefing for reporters yesterday, clearly stating that it is all about conditions on the ground, the pace of that drawdown, when that drawdown ends. You had Joe Biden this morning saying, how can it embolden the enemy if it's only 98,000 there instead of 100,000, as if it's only going to be a couple thousand troops that come out in 2011?
I think what the White House at least says they're trying to do with that is trying to create some sense of urgency for the Afghan government. I'm not exactly sure that there's much political gain for the White House to put that date in there. People, Democrats, as you've talked about and seen, don't like it anyway. That has not really made this policy that much easier to swallow. So I think, there is some sort of sense of urgency, at least that's the hope, by not making this open-ended. But the White House is not too pleased with the reaction this morning, but not surprised.
That part of it?
I just think overall, they were really hoping that some Democrats would sort of at least do what Dick Durbin did and sort of say, okay, I'll review this. But there were a lot of sharp statements yesterday. Move On was urging people to call the White House. It was hard to tell who was in office yesterday.
It was one of those days where you actually care about what the statement said. But Dick Durbin's statement was really interesting to me. It was so terse. It was just a clip statement saying, I'm going to continue to review this. Well, this is one of the closest allies that President Obama has on Capitol Hill, one of his best friends on the Hill. And to have a statement like that, I thought was rather extraordinary.
It's also one of the, 16 or so Senate Democrats who voted against the Iraq War in the first place. This is a senator who does not believe that the war should be escalated. He, I would assume, will ultimately come out against this, but he wanted to give the president a little bit of time in this respect, and I think the White House was hoping others would as well, but that didn't happen.
And we're starting to see candidates in the 2010 elections, even in places like Jack Conway in Kentucky, or starting to say big reservations about this. Obviously, Arlen Specter has a primary fight as well in Pennsylvania. But this is not something, I guess, the president's not going to be able to hit the campaign trail next year for all these candidates and expect his Democrats to have fully embraced this, especially as death toll goes up, no doubt.
No question, but I still think that we're not quite sure exactly where public opinion is on this yet.
No
It'll
doubt.
take a few days for this to settle. The president did make the argument that, that this is necessary for our national security. I think that will resonate with some people. And Democrats have a line here as well. They can't go too far opposing this strategy, or suddenly some of them will look weak on national defense and things. So I don't think we know exactly how this will play out yet in 2010.
Well, we don't get to focus on Afghanistan for very long because already the health care bill is going to have its initial votes in the Senate today, and the White House is talking jobs tomorrow, this job summit. It seems like they tried to cram a lot into this the week after Thanksgiving. What do you make of that timing? Nothing's really had a chance to breathe this week.
And perhaps that's, by design, because the White House is hoping that the Afghanistan decision is sort of off the front pages. Of course, it will still be going on in Congress. The hearings will be going on. But it's hardly a premature thing for the White House to be talking about the economy and jobs. Some would argue that this jobs summit, for whatever it does, is at least symbolically too late in happening. So I think they definitely wanted to do something before the end of the year. It's sort of a lead into what next year will be all about, with the exception of Afghanistan, is jobs and unemployment. It will be mentioned a lot in the State of the Union address, and Democrats will be running on that. So by design, it is probably done after the Afghanistan decision, but they also only have so many days to do things, and they needed to do this before the holidays.
And although this Afghanistan decision is huge, he's still not, because of the economy, likely to be a wartime president.
We'll
fully
see.
Identified that way.
He probably won't be fully identified as a wartime president, although it's really striking to me yesterday when I was thinking of The first war speech that he gave was in 2002. His whole political career, the arc of it, has gone on during this these wars. But you're right, economy, jobs, that could do him in if anything will.
Not this one. Jeff Zeleny, New York Times. Thanks for being here. Appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Thank you, Jeff. That does it for this edition of Top Line. Click us on again tomorrow.
Twitter.com/TheNote. Keep the conversation going.